Black Forest. Another day, I thought as I woke up. Every single day feels like another wave of water slamming over me, making it feel like I am drowning. I honestly lose track of the days. The only thing I look forward to is leaving this wretched school. Every class is just a repeat from a book. There's honestly no interesting part. But today, as I trudge through the monotonous routine, something feels off. The air is heavy with an unnatural stillness, and the shadows seem to dance with a life of their own. Suddenly, a loud slam of a book interrupts my thoughts, snapping me back to reality. It's Sam, but his demeanor is different, colder. His eyes gleam with an unsettling intensity as he approaches me. "Honestly, I don't understand how you can sleep in class," he says, his voice echoing strangely in the empty hallway. "It's almost the end of the day, and we're about to leave," he adds, his smirk sending chills down my spine. Despite the years of friendship, I can't shake off the feeling of unease that grips me. There's something wrong, something lurking beneath the surface of his familiar facade. As I follow him towards the exit, a sense of dread washes over me, warning me of the horrors that await beyond the school's walls. And in that moment, I realize that Sam may not be the friend I thought he was. But as not a single thought crosses my mind, I follow Sam to his car. "Are you ready for our trip to the Black Forest tonight?" he asks eagerly, a glint of excitement in his eyes. It's supposed to be a very good night to go camping, and I can't wait to see the beautiful night sky. His words send a shiver down my spine, but I brush it off as pre-trip jitters. After all, Sam has always been the adventurous type, and his enthusiasm is infectious. "Sure, I'm ready," I reply, forcing a smile. But deep down, a sense of foreboding gnaws at my insides, whispering of dangers lurking in the darkness of the forest. Little do I know, this camping trip will be far from the peaceful escape I had hoped for. As we drive deeper into the night, the darkness of the forest envelops us like a thick blanket, suffocating and ominous. The trees loom overhead, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers reaching for something unseen. Despite Sam's excitement, an unsettling silence hangs heavy in the air, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant howl of a nocturnal creature. I can't shake the feeling that we're being watched, that something sinister lurks in the shadows just beyond the reach of our headlights. As we set up camp in a clearing deep within the forest, the oppressive atmosphere only seems to intensify. The crackling of the fire offers little solace against the encroaching darkness, and the flickering flames cast eerie shadows that dance like malevolent spirits around us. Sam's enthusiasm borders on obsession as he sets up his telescope, eager to gaze upon the stars. But his excitement feels misplaced, almost manic, as if he's trying to distract himself from the palpable sense of dread that hangs over us like a shroud. As the night wears on, a sense of unease settles in the pit of my stomach, growing with each passing moment. The forest seems to come alive around us, its inhabitants whispering secrets that I dare not comprehend. And then, in the dead of night, when the darkness is at its deepest, I hear it. A low, guttural growl that sends shivers down my spine. I turn to Sam, but his eyes are fixed on the sky, oblivious to the danger that lurks just beyond our campsite. But I know better. I can feel it in my bones, a primal instinct screaming at me to flee, to run as far and as fast as I can from this cursed place. And as the growls grow louder, closer, I realize that the horrors of the Black Forest are far more real than either of us could have imagined. The growls continue to echo through the darkness, each one sending a fresh wave of terror coursing through my veins. I glance around frantically, searching for the source of the sound, but the shadows seem to twist and writhe, concealing whatever lurks within. "Did you hear that?" I whisper, my voice barely above a terrified whimper. But Sam remains fixated on his telescope, oblivious to the danger that surrounds us. Before I can utter another word, a figure emerges from the darkness, its form shrouded in shadow. It moves with an unnatural grace, its eyes gleaming with malevolence as it advances towards us. "Sam, we need to go. Now!" I hiss urgently, but he brushes off my warning with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Don't be ridiculous," he scoffs, his voice tinged with irritation. "It's probably just a raccoon or something." But I know better. I can feel the primal instinct screaming at me to run, to flee from this nightmare come to life. With trembling hands, I reach for my backpack, desperate to grab whatever supplies I can before making a break for it. But before I can move, the creature lunges forward, its claws gleaming in the firelight. I scream, the sound tearing through the night like a knife, but it's too late. The creature's jaws close around me, its fetid breath hot against my skin as darkness consumes me. And as I fade into unconsciousness, I can't help but wonder what horrors await me in the depths of the Black Forest, and if I'll ever escape its clutches alive. As consciousness slowly returns, I find myself in a dimly lit chamber, the air thick with the scent of decay. My head throbs with pain, and I struggle to focus my blurred vision. The sound of footsteps echoes through the chamber, growing louder with each passing moment. Panic grips me as I realize that I'm not alone. I try to move, to escape, but my limbs are bound, trapped in chains that bite into my flesh. A figure emerges from the shadows, its features twisted and grotesque. It moves with a predatory grace, its eyes gleaming with hunger as it approaches. "So you're finally awake," it sneers, its voice dripping with malice. "Welcome to my domain." I recoil in horror, the realization dawning upon me that I am at the mercy of a creature far beyond my understanding. Its intentions are clear. I am nothing more than prey, a plaything to be toyed with until it grows bored. Desperation courses through me as I struggle against my restraints, but it's futile. The creature merely laughs, a sound that chills me to the bone. "You humans are so amusing," it muses, its voice reverberating through the chamber, so full of fear and yet so easily broken. As the creature draws closer, its foul breath washing over me, I resign myself to my fate. In the depths of the Black Forest, far from the reaches of civilization, I know that no one will hear my screams. And as darkness claims me once more, I can only pray for a swift end to my torment, knowing that the collapsing world. In today's world, almost everything is automated. Now it's backfiring. We created this, and we're suffering the consequences. Is this technology trying to kill us? No, but it's failing to protect us. I was minding my own business when suddenly I heard a howling sound far above me. I was simply sitting in my countryside house garden, and the howling got louder and whinier. I looked up and saw a passenger plane sawing towards the ground. It felt practically above my head when a massive explosion erupted on the other side of the house. I ran through to the front door and saw the wreckage of the plane, lighting up the crops that were spewed around it, an ominous fire tearing down the golden crops. I sprinted inside and immediately turned the TV to international news. This wasn't the first event. Planes had been going down left and right in countries such as Turkey, Australia, USA, Germany, and even more that I couldn't count. Planes weren't the only thing. I switched to London news, only to see most of the London Underground network had ground to a halt in the tunnels. Next, I switched to the news across England. Car accidents all over the roads, all involving and caused by electric cars. What was happening? It was as if the world was ending, or reforming into a new beginning. I went back outside. The scene was a mess. A plane fuselage burning all the crops, and in between me and field was a road with 3 crashed Teslas, and then a few other varieties of electric cars. Was this an attack? Some kind of failure? Whatever it was, we had caused this. Humans. I watched the news all day. Constant news about planes dropping out of the sky. Important softwares failing worldwide. And businesses suffering the consequences, not even a day in. What have we done? After a few days, I got into my car and headed towards the nearest town. I was scared and curious. As I pulled onto the main road, it seemed like a normal traffic jam, especially considering the time of day. Maybe the world wasn't ending just yet. I couldn't hold on to this hope for long. It was a clump of electric cars, all failed sitting on the road. Technology has doomed us. We have doomed ourselves. After a week, the only noise through a phone was 3 beeps when you tried calling someone. We'd all lost connection with each other. The only connection we had with the rest of the world was the news. But would that make it to tomorrow? The world was at a standstill. Terrorism rates were at an all-time high, as were looting and murder rates. News was gone. If you wanted food, you would have to buy it from a hunter of some sort at impossible prices. Having the ability to drive your car was now a luxury. You wanted to get to a big town? You walked. The world truly ended in a matter of weeks. Society was no longer a word. We were trying to advance far more than we needed to in this world. Meanwhile, unknowingly building our own end to the world. My sister is an anomaly. An anomaly is defined as anything that deviates from the expected, normal, or standard. This is quite a wide definition. An ant being slightly stronger than most others of its species is an anomaly. But so is something that breaks our perception of reality. Something that goes against everything we've ever known, bringing the nature of existence into question, is an anomaly. Something to be studied. When it gets swept away, unexplained, however much the anomaly has affected your life, you begin to feel a lot like that ant. Insignificant. My sister is an anomaly now. It started with a simple complaint about her hand feeling strange, a tingling sensation. The doctors almost flat out refused to do anything. I want to be angry, but then I remember telling her my own thoughts. It's nothing. Everyone gets weird feelings. It'll pass. It's what everyone told her. I suppose we thought we were reassuring her. Then the next symptom began. We awoke to her screaming, over and over. My hand is drooping. My hand is drooping. Without any context, what does that even mean? She knew exactly what it meant. She was the only one living this nightmare. Nobody could quite understand what she felt. I burst into her room seconds before our parents did the same. There she knelt, on her bed, with the fingers of her right hand about twice as long as usual. I can feel them, she cried. They're trying to continue. My mother flicked the switch, perhaps hoping that our eyes deceived us in the dark. The middle of the night, in a very dim light. It seems to teeter right on the edge of reality. It's the perfect condition to conjure up an illusion of the mind. Yet this, right here, was as real as you. Her hand was stretched. My mother immediately dialed the emergency services, whilst my father went into comfort mode. Hey, it's all right. Are you feeling okay? My sister sat for a moment, staring at her hand. Her breathing remained constantly heavy. In the background, I could hear my mother on the phone, although I wasn't paying much attention. Yes, twice as long. She was asleep. No, I don't know how. I feel... She paused, perhaps focusing on the feeling, deciding whether or not she felt okay. How would she even describe okay in this moment? Long. My father and I glanced at each other for a moment. Was that meant to be a joke? I smiled awkwardly. What does that mean? She got up from her bed, making it slowly apparent to all of us that she was taller. Not by much, maybe an inch or two, but in the context of human height overnight, that's a lot. The room fell silent. I think I could make out the operator on the other side of the phone trying to see if my mother was still there. Physically, she was, but mentally, I think she was just worried for her daughter. What's happening to me? Her voice broke slightly. It broke all of us along with it. To sound so dazed and lost about your own self is heartbreaking. It was the last time I saw her with any description of human emotion. She lunged towards my mother in the doorway, not to hurt her, just to leave the room. Although with all the urgency she had in her movement, I don't believe she would have cared if she had hurt anybody on the way out. We all called out for her, but she didn't turn back around. She didn't speak. She just ran through the house. Leaving the light of her room, she blended into the shadows. I don't know if my mind deceived me, but I swear I saw her hit her head on the ceiling multiple times, as if she was growing further. Each time she did, she grunted with pain, as if using a voice that was not her own. Each of us only seeing her from the corner of our eyes had managed to lose her in our own home. My father searched around upstairs, whilst my mother, still on the phone, started wandering the street outside. Catching a glimpse of something out the back window of the kitchen, I stepped outside. I was afraid of what I might be walking into. What nightmare could be waiting for me? I decided that whatever it was, I owe it to my sister to join her in this. Slowly, I made my way towards the movement. She had wrapped herself around a tree in the garden, one we used to climb as kids. She spoke something that I could only just make out over the sound of my own heart pounding. Everything is long. Her voice, raspy and weak, frightened me. Her black hair, usually down to her shoulders, now found its way down to the floor. I couldn't see her fully in the night, but the moonlight allowed me to see her vague shape. She was elongated more so than before. My voice shook as I spoke, trying to calm her. We'll fix this. I held out my hand. For a moment, I thought she might hold out her own. Maybe she would have if the sirens weren't so loud. An ambulance at the front of the house caught her attention as she let go of the tree, her snake-like limbs falling to the ground as she made her way over the fence. They never caught her. We never found her. Her funeral was held a month later. It's been 3 years. I still live in the same home. Her bedroom is almost exactly as it was. We keep her door open. Sometimes as I walk past, I imagine her, sat in her bed. Her body is back to its regular self. I'm okay now, she'll say. You helped me. But it's a mirage, a trick of the mind. My sister as herself is no longer real. Is she still out there, stretched? I got my answer last night. Unable to sleep, I slowly became acutely aware of a tapping noise. I don't know how long it had been going before my mind allowed it to be perceived. Seconds? Minutes? Hours? I suppose it doesn't matter. Once I had heard it, it stayed. 5 taps, rhythmically pattering against my window, behind the curtain. Sick of the noise, I got up, ready to see tree branches blowing in the wind. Instead, I saw 5 long fingers, extending from below my vision. The palm of the hand seemed just on the edge of what I could see. A face beginning halfway up the window and continuing far below looked in at me. The eyes were long, with the open mouth being even longer. This was unmistakably my sister's face. Whether or not it's my sister is another question. I stood there for a moment, recoiling, but not making a sound. Her appearance is not what scared me the most. My hand began to tingle. The canvas of shadows. Edgar Crane sat hunched over his desk, the flickering glow of the computer screen casting shadows on the walls of his dimly lit study. The deadline loomed like a guillotine, and he was the hapless writer with his head on the block. 6 months had slipped through his fingers, evaporating like mist in the morning sun. 6 months of procrastination, of false starts, of staring at the blank screen until his eyes blurred and his mind turned to mush. The advance from his publisher had more than kept him. He had even managed to scrap out a research trip hiking in the wildest parts of the Carpathians. But now the well had run dry. His agent's calls grew more urgent, the editor's emails more terse. No more excuses, they said. No more extensions. The first draft was due in less than a week, and Edgar had nothing to show for it. Nothing except a dusty, threadbare journal, esoteric trinkets, and some exotic holiday snaps. He reached for the journal, the leather cover creaking as he opened it. The pages were yellowed, the ink faded, but the words were etched into his memory. A strange, forgotten religion, the journal claimed. An ancient cult that worshipped gods long dead, their names whispered only in the darkest corners of history. Edgar had stumbled upon the journal amongst the effects of an unknown occultist named Francis Barrett, its spine cracked and its pages falling loose. The title was barely legible, Ritual and Lore from Beyond the Forest. The author chronicled rituals, incantations, and forbidden knowledge from across the Carpathians. Edgar had scoffed at first, dismissing it as the ramblings of a madman and nothing more than an initial stepping stone for the creation of his latest horror novel. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, he found himself drawn back to its pages. The journal spoke of mysterious obsidian tablets, Sir Numicon totems to be precise. Objects imbued with ancient power, conduits to realms beyond our own. Totems that could unlock the door to true horror, the very birth of endless night, the Sinuvrum. Edgar had dismissed it all as nonsense, until he stumbled upon the ruins. It happened during his trip deep in the Carpathian Mountains. He had followed a narrow trail, the trees closing in around him like gnarled fingers. The air grew colder, the light dimmer. And then the mountain opened itself to him, and he saw them. The forgotten ruins. No doubt the landslide was caused by illegal logging which plagued the region. But somewhere deep inside Edgar, he knew this was no coincidence. The dark temple revealed itself, its stone ruins seeing daylight after its secrets had been buried for millennia. Edgar remembered the chill that had crept up his spine as he'd stood among those forgotten walls, the very stone pulsing with malevolence. Edgar snapped photos with his phone, capturing the eerie beauty of the place. But it was the 9 black stone tablets he found that intrigued him the most. Covered in mysterious symbols, they lay scattered among the ruins like pieces of a forgotten puzzle. He eyed them greedily, as if they had called to him. He picked them up, the weight of more than 2,000 years pressing against his palms. Now he stared over the top of the journal at those same mythic stones lined up on his desk. Francis Barrett had spent a lifetime chasing mere tales of Cernumicon totems, traveling from the eastern bank of the Danube to the shores of the Black Sea. Now Edgar had spent the best part of 6 months staring at them, and couldn't even put together the opening line of a novel. Desperation drove Edgar to the internet, frantically Googling for story ideas, scouring forums and reading obscure blogs. He eventually stumbled across an article in Newsweek titled, "I'm Making Thousands Using AI to Write Books." Edgar thought he'd found his solution. He was going to use AI to write his story for him. He initially tried the free AIs, but his basic prompts only yielded equally basic results. Despite the failure, Edgar saw potential, and he hungered for more. Further down the rabbit hole he fell. His search for more sophisticated and nefarious tools to fabricate his work took him to the dark web. He followed digital breadcrumbs, chasing whispers of forbidden knowledge. He delved deeper and deeper into the digital underworld, where the boundaries of reality blurred. Then he found it, the whisper in the night, the dark web's elusive AI with a hunger for the forbidden. Nix Scriptor. He typed in the same prompts surrounding the Cernumicon totems, the forgotten temple deep in the Carpathians, the journal of the long-dead occultist, and becoming the midwife to the endless night, the Knuvrami. But again, his basic prompts only yielded basic results. Frustration gnawed at him, desperation clawing at his chest. "What the hell do I need to do to get real horror out of you?" he typed. Nix Scriptor answered honestly, "Nixithra totems, AI book lore. Please input real totems in order to general real horror." A prompt window popped up, allowing uploading of PDF, JPEG, GIF, TIFF, BMP, PNG, AC, MP3, WAV, AVI, MPEG, and SOL files. Edgar hadn't even heard half of the file types and had no idea what a Nixethra totems were. He instinctively reached for the journal, leafing through its pages once more. The forgotten religion whispered deep in his soul, urging him to sacrifice something real. Then he picked up the dark obsidian tablets. Their ancient runes seemed to writhe under his touch. He uploaded images of the black stone's malignant runes and the pages of the tormented journal. He pressed enter on Nix Scriptor's prompt window. The loading symbol began to spin for what seemed like an eternity. As the strange icon spun, a spectral hand traced an ice-cold finger up his spine. It was the same chill he felt deep in the Carpathian Mountains. Then the lights flickered, and the ground shook. A single word appeared on the screen. Done. Edgar's heart raced as he slowly stood from his desk. He knew what had happened, but he couldn't believe it. His head swam, as if on the verge of a faint. Inside his mind he felt it, the door swinging open, the veil tearing asunder. He walked over to the front door and placed a deliberate hand on the handle. The brass was ice cold. The ground trembled again, and the walls cracked. He slowly turned the handle. The latch clicked. The deadline was now forgotten. The publisher's threats meaningless. The horror was real.